Om Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for joining. And we will start a new chapter today, chapter number 6, which is entitled Dhyana Yoga. And we will start with verse number 1. Shri Bhagavano Vacha Anashritaha Karma Phalam Karyam Karma Karoti Yaha Sa Sannyasi Cha Yogi Cha Na Nirakni Na Chakriyaha. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life. And he is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no duty. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So chapter 6, as it is rightly entitled Dhyana Yoga, Krishna is going to talk many verses on the yoga process, especially the Ashtanga Yoga. And towards the end of the chapter, which is the very last verse, he will talk about the topmost yogi. So this is going to be a very interesting chapter. As we can see, the very first Sanskrit words for this verse starts with Shri Bhagavana Uvacha. Bhagavan means the Supreme Lord. Bhaga means opulences, and Van means the one who possesses the opulences in full. And as per the scriptures, we may take either Brahma Samhita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Upanishads. There are many references that indicate that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and not just a historical personality, but the Supreme Lord. So, for instance, in the Brahma Samhita, we have heard where Lord Brahma says, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. That Krishna is the Maha Ishvara, he is the Lord of all. So this itself gives us enough faith in the Bhagavad Gita that the message of the Bhagavad Gita is not by just some great personality, but from the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. What is Bhagavad Gita? Bhagavad means Bhagavan, God, and Gita means song. So it's a song of the Supreme Lord, sung by the Lord himself. Now, in this verse that we recited just now, Krishna is giving some indication about real renunciation. Unattached to fruits. Now, we've already learned in chapter 3 and chapter 5 about akarma, which means if one performs the duties, prescribed duties according to the scriptures and does not crave or does not long for enjoying the fruits of the activities, that is called akarma. And that has no reactions. Those actions performed as a prescribed duty has no reaction. So here, Krishna is again emphasizing unattached to fruits, because attachment to the fruits or enjoying the fruits leads to a lot of frustration and lamentation. So here he says unattached to fruits and work as obligated, doing the prescribed duty. Such a person is actually renounced and a true mystic. So usually the idea that people generally have about a renunciate is one, who is in saffron clothes with a long beard and probably living in the forest or in the Himalayas. No. A person can be living with the family going to a job, working, doing whatever is necessary to maintain the body and soul together. But in consciousness, that person is renounced, not work-wise, but consciousness-wise, which means one is not attached to the fruits of the activity. So this chapter entitled Dhyana Yoga will give us the purpose of the yoga system. And what is the purpose of performing yoga? We've already talked about the yoga ladder, karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, ashtanga yoga, bhakti yoga. These are the different rungs of the yoga ladder. But dhyana yoga, the purpose of dhyana yoga or this whole yoga system is to control the mind. Why? Because the mind is the central part of the yoga system. Now, for us to understand what is yoga, yoga means connecting or linking with the Supreme Lord. It's important to understand what is not yoga. That is very important. For instance, yoga to bring the blood pressure down, office yoga, desktop yoga, or chair yoga, or yoga for the pregnant women, yoga for weight loss, yoga for taking care of back pain. That is not real yoga. That yoga is only for the body. But Bhagavad Gita is explaining to us, especially in this chapter number 6, Krishna is definitely going to give knowledge about dhyana yoga or yoga for the body, how to do meditation. But there is something beyond that, yoga for the mind. That is real yoga. Real yoga means linking. We perform our activities in such a way that we can connect with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is what Krishna is going to explain, especially in the last verse of this chapter. So one of the linking processes is to do meditation, and that is mantra meditation. Man means mind, tra means something that frees the mind of any anxiety. So if one really wants to connect, then mantra meditation is very powerful. Why? Because these spiritual sound vibrations, they are very, very powerful. And when they go into the ears and go straight to the heart, they start purifying the heart, the mind, the body, the intelligence, the senses. There is purification. So to be able to perform our activities unattached to the fruits, which means perform a karma, then one has to come to a level of renunciation as far as the consciousness is concerned, which means renounce the fruits of the activities. Then there are going to be no reactions. You see, there is no point in stressing on, I don't want to work, I want to renounce this world, I want to renounce my family, I don't want to do anything. No, that's not what is suggested in the Bhagavad Gita. For instance, even when Arjuna, when we heard chapter 1 and 2 in the beginning, Arjuna was telling Krishna, I don't want to fight. Now that's his prescribed duty because he's a warrior, he's a Kshatriya, and his duty is to fight. But he didn't want to do that. He wanted to renounce everything and go to the forest. Krishna did not agree to that. He told him, no, you perform your duty, you fight the war because that's your duty, but do not be attached. Do not be attached to, that, oh, am I going to win or I'm going to lose? Is there going to be success or failure? No, he said, you perform your duty with detachment. So now, in the beginning, the few verses of this chapter, Krishna is preparing us before explaining to us the Ashtanga Yoga. He wants us to understand that there is no need to give up work. There is no need to go to the forest and start meditating. No, that is not necessary at all. Just perform duties without attachment to the fruits. So it's important to understand this point before we start hearing about Ashtanga Yoga, so that there is no confusion. That is the only purpose. But to be able to really practice yoga, the real yoga, practice is needed. Constant practice is necessary. Srila Prabhupada used to say, philosophy without religion is just mental speculation. Both have to be there. On the other hand, religion without philosophy is just sentiment. That means we are doing some things because we've been told to do without any knowledge. So both are necessary. The knowledge is required, and then practicing, putting that knowledge into practice will lead to realization. So we need knowledge and application both together. So this chapter is going to explain to us, of course, about Dhyan Yoga, but also the eightfold yoga system. And the purpose of understanding this eightfold, Ashta means eight, Anga means parts, the 8 parts, so Ashtanga Yoga. So the purpose to understand that would be just to control the mind and the senses. Now we will notice that as Krishna starts explaining to Arjuna about Ashtanga Yoga, he will tell Krishna, hold on, this is very difficult. This is very difficult to perform, especially for us in this age of Kali Yuga. It is difficult, but Krishna will give him the knowledge so that one can understand how difficult it is to perform Ashtanga Yoga. Better is to perform Bhakti Yoga, which is very simple, very easy to follow. Let's see what Krishna says in verse number 2. Just now I recited verse number 1. Let's see what he says in verse number 2. Excuse me. What is called renunciation, you should know to be the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme, O son of Pandu. For one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. So here we see the real meaning of renunciation. No desire for enjoying the fruits of our activities. In other words, trying to enjoy the senses. So a yogi is one who actually understands this. And not only that, understands the basic knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, which is, I am not this body, but I am the spirit soul, which means understanding the real identity, and performs actions in such a way that there are no reactions. What is the problem with reactions? The problem with reactions is every action has a reaction, whether good or bad. So if it doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. A person, the soul will have to take on another body to get either the benefit or reactions of the past actions. So if one wants to come out of this cycle of birth and death, then it's important that we do not accumulate any more reactions. So if a yogi understands this, then he is considered to be the real renunciate, because the renunciation is internally. It's not just physically, wearing saffron clothes or, no, that's not it. So understanding that I'm not this body and I'm the soul, understanding the purpose of yoga is to build a relationship with the Supreme Lord, understanding that we need to be conscious of Krishna, and also understanding that Krishna is explaining to Arjuna for us that the linking process with Krishna starts with mantra meditation, and that is what is recommended in Bhagavad Gita. It's mentioned even in Srimad Bhagavatam, Puranas, and Upanishads. So a person who is conscious of Krishna, that person is considered a yogi and a renunciate, because until and unless we engage our senses in a spiritual way, we will not be able to really be conscious of the Lord all the time. For instance, when we chant on a daily basis, that kind of connects us with the Supreme Lord. That is the connection. That's where the connection begins. And of course, such a person, as Krishna says, is on a very high level platform. You know, restraining the senses is not the only constituent in true renunciation of sense gratification. No. You know, for instance, you know, one of the senses is to hear. So it's not that I just close my ears and say, I'm not going to hear anything. No, we can use this sense in a spiritual way also, hearing the spiritual sound vibrations, hearing the Bhagavad Gita, chanting. So this is how we don't have to restrain the senses, but use them in the right direction, because the desire to enjoy the senses will be there. It's just it needs to be dovetailed, and then this renunciation will gradually help us to link with Krishna, and that would be a true yoga. That is a true yoga system. One cannot be a true yogi till one renounces the intention to enjoy the senses. So this is what Krishna is going to talk about further in the other verses also. In verse number 3, Krishna says, for one who is a neophyte in the eightfold yoga system, work is said to be the means. And for one who is already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. So here in this verse, Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport very, very nicely. He is actually talking about the yoga ladder, and there are 3 rungs that he talks about: jnana, dhyana, and bhakti. These are the 3. So the beginning of the ladder, which is the jnana, the beginning, is called yoga rukshu stage. That is a Sanskrit verse. And the highest rung is called yoga rudha stage. So now these are the 2 stages, and these are further divided into 8 steps. And that is what I was explaining. Ashtanga, 8. Ashta means 8. Anga means parts. So these are the 8 parts that are there. So at the beginning stage, which is called the yoga rukshu, one must work, but that person is neither detached enough nor pure enough to renounce work. That is the beginning stage. But one can renounce work only at an advanced stage. Just like a person who has started, practicing the yoga system cannot renounce the work and, say, okay, from tomorrow, I'm not going to go to work. No, it doesn't work. There is a progression. There is a gradual progression. One has to, of course, have knowledge, put it into practice, get some guidance, and gradually reach the advanced stage, which is called Yoga Rudha. And when one reaches that pure stage, then one can renounce and will not be disturbed in mind. There will be no disturbance. But if one does that quickly, then there's going to be frustration because it is done haphazardly. It is not done in a systematic way. So this yoga, Ashtanga yoga, is actually a linking process via meditation. And what are these 8 parts? The Ashtangas. The first one is yama. Yama means sense control. There has to be some discipline. For yoga, there needs to be discipline. Even those who are performing yoga for the body, discipline is necessary. There is breath control, there is, postures and all that. So the very first one is yama, which is sense control. The next is niyama, which means following the regulative principles. So these first 2 stages, which is yama and niyama, they are actually, you can say they are kind of giving, it's a prescription as well as prohibition. Prescription, in other words, telling us what needs to be done. Niyama, sense control, regulative principles, those are the prohibitions. So only after learning to strictly follow the rules and regulations, Then one can go on to the next stage, which is number 3, which is called the asana, which is the sitting postures. That, of course, we have learned, in the yoga for the body, sitting posture is how very important. So then actually, of course, this asanas, this generally is known as hatha yoga in the terms that we use, in our day-to-day life. It is called hatha yoga. So asana is the sitting posture. So when a person masters these asanas, then a person goes to the 4th stage, which is pranayam, which is breath control. And breath is actually intimately connected with the mind. So when the mind comes under control with breath control, then a person can go to the next stage, which is pratyahara, sense control from enjoyment, which means some more discipline is required, withdrawing the senses from sense objects, learning this art of sense control. Then when a person is detached, then he can go on to the next stage, which is called dharana, which means a person is fixed up. No one can disturb. So very fixed up. Why? Because the mind and senses are under control. Then the next stage comes is dhyana, which is meditation, which is also called samadhi. You see, the final stage, of course, after dhyana is samadhi, where there is complete absorption. Absorption in what? In the Supreme Lord. So in samadhi, the mind and the consciousness, they are fully focused on Krishna. So this is Ashtanga, the 8 limbs of the yoga system. But the ultimate purpose of yoga is to link with the Supreme Lord. So those who have reached this highest rung of Bhakti Yoga, so as I was explaining, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. So if a person is practicing Bhakti Yoga, which is devotional service to Krishna, that person is already, has already mastered all the other forms of yoga. So from the very beginning, they are already on the platform of meditation. So practicing mantra meditation every day helps one to control the mind, control the senses, sharpen the intelligence, so that a person can understand what is right, what is wrong, make the right decisions. So this is how this whole yoga system that Krishna is explaining. Of course, the actual Ashtanga yoga process will start from verse number 11, which will be next Tuesday. But let's see what is a prelude to that. What is Krishna trying to tell us before he explains Ashtanga yoga? In the next verse, he says, a person is said to be elevated in yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. So here you can see the symptoms of someone who has elevated oneself in this yoga system. What is it? The first thing is renounce material desires, fully engaged in satisfying the Supreme Lord. And this is the final stage called Yoga Rudha, which starts with Dhyana Yoga. Dhyana means meditation. And of course, in this age that we are in Kali Yuga, the scriptures tell us, Krite yadhyayato Vishnu, Tretayam yajato make, Dwapare paricharim, Kalau tad hari kirtan. That in Satya Yuga, in Satya Yuga, the process for self-realization was meditation. Meditation for at least 30 to 40,000 years. This is what the Vedas describe. This verse is from the Vedas. And in Treta Yuga, it was fire sacrifice. In Dwapar Yuga, it was elaborate worship in the temples. But Kalau tad hari kirtanam. Kalau means Kali Yuga. Tad means we get the same benefit like the other yugas with Hari Kirtana, by chanting the holy names of Lord Hari. So this is in Kali Yuga, in this age, it's the most simple process for self-realization, for bringing ourselves to that pure, highest level of perfection. So it's so simple. We can understand that just by mantra meditation on a daily basis, that will help us to reach that stage. We don't have to really, go to the forest to meditate. Of course, when we hear about Ashtanga Yoga, you all will be surprised, the knowledge that is there on what is the right way to meditate. We will, just like Arjuna said, oh no, this is very difficult. It's very difficult to follow this Ashtanga Yoga. So we can understand that in this Kali Yuga, we have got the easiest method for self-realization. So a person who is, elevated in yoga renounces all material desires. And important point to understand is that such a true yogi or a true mystic, this yogi doesn't need to live in the forest. Such a yogi can live with the family, still work, because it's just a matter of consciousness. The consciousness has changed. The work still remains the same. So a true yogi renounces material desires or enjoying the fruits of the activities or fruitive pursuits. All that is renounced. So a person still continues to work, but does his prescribed duty without any attachment. Let's see what Krishna says in verse number 5. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. So we can see mind is the culprit, can be our best friend or can be our worst enemy. So it's important that since mind is a central part of the yoga system, that we can try to first control the mind. Because once the mind comes under control, then it's not very difficult to control the senses. So if the mind is under control, then the mind is the best friend. But the uncontrolled mind is the worst enemy. But to do that, to control the mind, it needs training. Just like when we want to learn something, we need to be trained. And after training, there has to be a constant practice to make ourselves perfect. So it's important to train the mind with the help of knowledge, not blind faith, but help of knowledge. Just like even the children need training. And so also the mind needs training. If we don't train the mind, then the mind will start getting entangled, and then it'll be very difficult to reach the stage of liberation. So engaging the mind in a higher taste. Many times I give this example. If the child is eating dirt, and if the mother tells the child, please stop eating, the child is not going to listen. But if the mother offers a candy, the child will immediately give up eating dirt. Why? Because the child has now got a higher taste. So also our mind needs to engage in higher taste, something that is going to give us a permanent happiness, going to give us peace of mind. If you remember, last Tuesday, we concluded chapter 5 with the formula for peace, how to attain peace. Bhoktaram yagna tapasam sarvalokam maheshwara suridam sarvabhutanam gnatva mam shantim richati. This is how we get shanti. So engaging the mind in some spiritual activities, we will be able to train the mind to come under control. So one, in this verse, Krishna says, one can, with the help of mind, elevate oneself or degrade oneself. The choice is ours. So we need to choose how we want to use the mind. The mind, if the mind works with false ego, then that becomes very harmful, and that also causes bondage. In chapter 3, Krishna says, Yagnarthat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha. Tad artham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. So if you want liberation, he says work should be done as a sacrifice for Krishna, for him. Then that work will not cause bondage. There will be no reactions, and there's going to be liberation. So with the help of bhakti yoga, devotional service, we can learn to control the mind. And it begins with mantra meditation, because mantra helps one to calm the mind and even control the senses. And mantra is very simple. After every class, we do a little bit of chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. It's very, very simple. So even if we chant this, do this meditation just for a few minutes every day, we will see the difference, how the mind becomes more calm, how the senses don't start running haywire. It's easy to control. So in verse number 6, Krishna says, for him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. Wow. What an instruction. So we have the choice. What do we want to do? Make the mind our best friend or our greatest enemy? That needs training. When we take on knowledge, use our intelligence, contemplate on what we are hearing from the Bhagavad Gita, and put it into practice. And for that, definitely we need guidance, just as, we need guidance when we want to learn something new, whether it's music, dancing, karate, software. It could be any aspect of life. We need guidance, we need training. So also to come to the stage of being a true yogi, a true mystic, one needs to have some guidance. And in Kali Yuga, the best way is to understand it through Bhagavad Gita, put it into practice. Sincerity is very, very important. Anything we do in life, sincerity and seriousness, these two are the most important aspect of what we want to do. If we are not sincere, and if we are not serious about what we want to achieve, if we are not sincere and serious about our goal in life, then how are we going to be successful? That's not possible. So the first step to do is to make the right choice. The choice of, yes, I definitely would like to control my mind and senses. I definitely would like to, become a true yogi. I definitely would like to, achieve permanent peace and happiness. If that is our goal, then this chapter also is going to help us a lot. So here Krishna is telling us that we can either make our mind our best friend or our greatest enemy. In verse number 7, Krishna says, for one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor, all are the same. Now, can we say this for ourselves? Are we above dualities? Do the dualities affect us or not affect us? Do we get disturbed when we are insulted? Do we become very proud when we are praised? Do we get affected by heat or cold, success, failure? See, and what is the main thing that helps us to either go beyond dualities or get affected by dualities? Is the mind. When the mind is conquered, in other words, when the mind is controlled, then a person reaches that stage of tranquility. If you remember, we covered a beautiful verse where Krishna tells Arjuna, Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shuni Kecha Panditaha Sama darshinaha. Sama darshinaha means equal level, sees everyone equally, is a panditaha. Panditaha means he is a learned person. He has reached that stage of self-realization where he does not discriminate between any living entity. Why? Because that person has reached that stage of tranquility. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma na shochati na kankshati. He has reached that Brahma Bhuta stage where he is neither lamenting nor hankering. He's completely on the level of tranquility. Why? Because he's fully satisfied. He's content. And that is why he is above dualities. Dualities do not affect him at all. That is what Krishna is talking about in this verse. So if we can somehow the other understand the symptoms of a person who is self-realized, then we can try to achieve that level. We can try to take on this knowledge and put it into practice. And this is possible when the mind and senses are trained to come under control. Once the mind and senses are under control, then the dualities will not affect a person. Then a person will not be disturbed whether there is happiness or distress. Now, this is not an easy process, in the sense it's not easy to reach that stage, but it's not impossible. It is possible. And that is why Krishna is telling Arjuna, for us, actually, he wants to give this knowledge to us, explaining to us via Arjuna that a person can reach that stage, but then a lot of effort needs to go in that. Let's see what the verse number 8 says. It says, a person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi or mystic when he's fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same. So that means it doesn't matter, because after having reached that stage of full satisfaction, complete self-control, reach that stage of transcendence. So you see, these are the symptoms, some more symptoms of someone who is self-realized. So when a person reaches that stage, then sees everything equally, then it doesn't matter whether it's pebbles or gold or stone, sees everything equally. That's a very high level. And to reach that level, Srila Prabhupada explains that association is important. Supposing I want to, learn to probably sing or music or whatever, I need to associate with like-minded people, learn from them, go to a teacher. So guidance is necessary, training is necessary. So here we see these are the symptoms of a self-realized person, and this person is tripta, means he's satisfied. Satisfied with the knowledge, satisfied with the realization, is always in that mood of satisfaction. It's not restless, it's not whimsical like the mind usually is, very, very much, restless and kind of all the time, stressed out. If the focus, if the mind is focused in the right direction, if the mind is dovetailed in the right direction, then it is possible. With the help of this transcendental knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, one can remain steady in one's convictions. One will be able to practice. Bhagavad Gita is not just a book, to read or to hear. It is actually an owner's manual for us human beings, which shows us how we should live this human form of life, how to sit, how to walk, how to talk, how to perform actions. So this is a spiritual science giving us, all the details necessary for this machinery, which is called the human body. So this is a very, I would say, a very simple and easy way to lead this human form of life in the most perfect way and reach the goal, which is self-realization. I'm going to do 2 more verses for today, and then we will leave it for Ashtanga Yoga process for next Tuesday. Verse number 9, a person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral, mediators, the envious, friends and enemies, the pious and the sinners, all with an equal mind, which means that person is equipoised, sees everyone equally, and is, not there to judge anyone, is just sees that all living entities are parts of the Supreme Lord. Like Krishna says, Mamai Vamsha Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, that all are my parts, all living entities are my children, they are my parts. So the self-realized yogi, he understands and he accepts and he sees everyone equally. So there is no discrimination at all. Let's do the last verse for today, number 10. A transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. So here we see what should a transcendentalist or a self-realized person should do. So Krishna is now starting to explain the Ashtanga Yoga. He's explaining how to practice yoga. To first of all, to be completely free of material desires and possessiveness. What are the things we are possessive about family, about our home, our assets, or whatever it may be. So all that possessiveness here, Krishna is saying that desire and feelings of possessiveness should not be there. The final verse of this chapter will describe Bhakti Yoga, which is the topmost yoga practice. So basically, before explaining Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 limbs in detail, Krishna is giving us an idea about what is real renunciation, what is the stage of self-realization, what are the symptoms of a true mystic or a true yogi. So engaging the mind, the body, and the self in relationship with Krishna. Now the question may arise, how can we do that? It's very simple. Everything we know, when we came to this world, when we got this body, we came empty-handed. When we leave this body, we have to go empty-handed. So everything belongs to the Supreme Lord. Everything, the material nature, whatever we have, everything that is there in this material world, everything belongs to the Supreme Lord. So if everything belongs to him, how can we be possessive of something that doesn't belong to us? So everything should be seen as a gift from Krishna. Everything belongs to him. We are just using it. So not to forget the goal. The goal is to become a true yogi, a bhakti yogi, but the performance of devotional service. And the first step of devotional service is mantra meditation. So before we end, we will, if you don't mind, we will just chant for a little while, just maybe a few minutes, the mantra, so that, maybe, I think there is a question, but after the mantra chanting, I will take that question. In the meantime, here are all the links if you would like to, join any group, the WhatsApp group or Facebook or YouTube. But towards the end, you see the mantra that I will chant for just a few times, so that we can get the hang of it, of those of you who are who are not chanting, maybe you can start chanting. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So you see, it's very, very simple. So it's my humble suggestion that please, all of you try. If you're not chanting every day, please try to chant every day so that we can get the benefit. And